Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo. Today's guest is Jenn Johnson, and she is a registered nurse with over 16 years of experience working in emergency rooms across Northern and Southern Ontario. And she has seen it all: life, death, burnout, bullying, and the emotional toll of working through the global pandemic. Her debut book, Nursing Intuition: How to Trust Your Gut, Save Your Sanity, and Survive Your Career, is a powerful rally cry to fellow nurses who feel like they are losing their love for their profession. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, Amanda.
Of course. So that's an awesome bio. But who would you say Jenn is at the core?
At the core, Jenn is a nonstop go kind of person who loves a great book and a fantastic challenge and loves to help others. Not just my patients, but my coworkers and anybody who needs a helping hand.
I love that. Have you always been someone to help?
I think so. Like, it's kind of funny. Everybody's always like, oh, did you always want to grow up to be a nurse? And like, actually, I never once thought about being a nurse growing up. I had one friend growing up whose mom was a nurse, but she was in public health. So she did the Monday to Friday, 8 to 4 kind of thing, and never really saw shift work. But it wasn't until I failed out of my second year organic chemistry course in my biology degree where I finally went, oh, maybe this is not where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm supposed to be doing something different. And thankfully, a girlfriend in first year was in the nursing program, and she and I would go over her textbooks, and I'm just like, okay, this is interesting. This is what I actually want to do. And thankfully was able to get into the, they had a 3-year compressed program for the degree, and as well as the 4-year. And I was very lucky to get into the 3-year compressed, and all of a sudden was in nursing, and oh, this is really what's supposed to be happening. I got this. Okay.
No, can you tell us a little more about your upbringing, about childhood, maybe family dynamic? Lay
Sure.
the foundation a little?
I am the oldest of 3. My mom and dad are still married. Grew up in Southwest Ontario, middle of the road, like middle class, middle upper maybe. And mom's a veterinarian, dad's a millwright. And so it's always just kind of been your average grow up, bouncing between school and activities and babysitters and trying to come to terms with mom working. And my mom went from part-time when we were probably in like grade school. And then once we hit middle school, high school, she went full time. So having that as kind of a backbone to, mom's a small business owner, and she owns her own clinic with her partner. And it's been one of those things where the more I kind of dive into entrepreneurship and that kind of thing, it's like, oh, okay, this is more of what mom was doing than I probably even realized at the time.
That's a cool synchronicity.
It's kind of nuts. You grow up and you put your parents into their little spots, and your mind kind of just holds them there until you finally grow up and you go, oh, well, that's what was happening there. And that's what was happening over there. And oh, dad did teach college for a period of time, and he did also have a small business for a period of time. He ended up folding it after a few years and going back to work. But I'm like, oh, that's kind of where I get my go and bounce from one thing to the next from, Whereas, mom was the one with the stable one job. It's kind of, looking back on it, it's kind of funny to really take it all in and go, oh yeah, all that did happen.
Oh my gosh. Now, I want to backtrack a tad. You mentioned you had failed your second year of chemistry in high school.
So in university, I
And
had a biology degree, and in the second year, there's a year-long chemistry course, but they break it up into 2 portions, and I'd failed the first portion. And looking at it, you're like, well, now I'm fully a year behind. Like, I can't really move forward with the bio degree too much without getting this chemistry course. And I'd never failed anything before. So why is this so hard to grasp? Like, I've never come up against anything that I just couldn't wrap my head around, no matter how much I tried. So it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, okay, here's the universe really shoving me into the right direction because I wasn't listening previously. But, okay, here's the shove. I'm gonna take that and redirect. And instead of it being potentially world shattering, it turned out to be one of the best things that could have ever happened to me.
so what was your next step from there?
So getting into the nursing program, going through the hoops of that, finally feeling like I knew what was going on. So having my marks go from like 50s, 60s in bio to like 80s, 90s suddenly in the nursing courses, you're like, oh, okay, now it's all clicking. And this is, not only is it interesting, but I'm really getting this. Like, it is clicking. And so graduating, starting my first job, meeting my husband just before I'd graduate, or my now husband just before I'd graduated, and kind of getting started on that path. And, my first nursing job, you come out of nursing school and you're just shiny and new and green, and you're so excited that you're going to save all the people. And it was the most toxic workplace I have ever been in my entire life. It was the worst.
Ooh, okay. About how old were you at this time?
So I would have been 23, I think, when I graduated. So coming into a very, very small town, like less than 5,000 people. It was my husband's hometown. A lot of his family was there, but it was very rural, northwestern Ontario. So the emergency department, it was just one nurse in the ER. And then on the floor, there was one registered nurse and 2 LVNs or RPNs kind of running all the admitted patients. And that was it. Like, there really wasn't any support. There wasn't an education lead kind of per se. You'd walk by your boss's office going from one end of the hospital to the other, from the floor down to emerge and back again. And it was just one hallway with the whole hospital. So it was a rude awakening, thinking that they'd warned us in nursing school. They're like, oh, nurses eat their young. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? I don't understand. And then getting into the real world and going, oh, this is what they mean. They mean that the seasoned, should have retired 10 years ago nurse is the one that's running the show. And for some reason or another, they hate my guts. And they've made it their life's mission to make my life miserable. And so you just kind of go, okay, I'm going to deal with this as best I can, and smile and nod and have a lot of second thoughts about nursing as a whole. But I'm just going to make the best of it that I can. Ended up getting a bunch of certificates because some night shifts, there wouldn't be one person that came into the ER. So you just kind of sat there and you did nothing. And, it just, time crept away very, very slowly. It sounds like the best case scenario to be like, oh, not one person. You can do your own thing. This is great. And in reality, like, the minutes ticked by. So I ended up getting couple of different certificates, critical care and perinatal, so obstetrics. What else did I get? Critical care emerge, obstetrics. There was one or two more, and it's just, something to do. And knowing full well that, working the emerge, you don't really get a great orientation because some days nothing comes in and some days you're run off your feet because there's literally no other supports, but it's one or the other. There was never really a great time to learn. So you just kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to try and figure out what I don't know. Because it feels like I could get myself into a lot of trouble very quickly with random things that, you don't learn really about emergency nursing school. You learn more kind of like work the floor and how that flow goes, whereas the emerge is its own beast.
Now, what made you get into emergency nursing when you first?
Well, it was just so because the hospital was so small and there was only 2 RNs on any shift. Typically, you just rotate. One day you'd start out on the floor and you'd work with the RPNs and you'd do that. And then the next day you'd be an emerge or the opposite, unless you were working with somebody who really liked emerge and that's what they wanted to do, or they really liked the floor and that's what they wanted to do. Typically, we just kind of bounce back and forth. And so half the time you're like, okay, I'm in emerge. What in the world does that even mean?
Now, how long did you stay at that hospital?
Almost 5 years. So ended up moving in with my now husband. We got married, and I think we were married for a hot minute before I kind of said, I can't do this anymore. I miss my family. My family was in southwestern Ontario. I can't deal with the bullying anymore. I can't deal with this weight that I feel like I'm carrying every day going into work, and you come home and you're not only just exhausted physically, but emotionally, you're just wiped out. And so I ended up getting a job with a health system down this way. And I'm just like, okay, like, let's go. And it turns out my husband couldn't get a job down this way. So it took us a good 3-4 months of him looking for work before he finally found something. And I just remember him calling me to say that he'd gotten that job and that I could quit. And it was just one of the best days of my life.
Oh my gosh. And now, I bet that was. Did you get back into working right away after you quit? Or what was?
Oh, for sure. So by the time I figured out that I was able to quit, thankfully the job down here had waited months for me to come down. So I said, okay, well, I'll put in my 2 weeks and I'll get that all teed up and then I'll fly down south, and I don't even care if like how I get there. So I ended up, so you had to drive 2 hours from that little town into Thunder Bay, which is kind of a big hub in northwestern Ontario. You had to fly out of Thunder Bay to Toronto. And then I took a train from Toronto to St. Catharines. And then I drove a rental car from St. Catharines into Niagara Falls. And that's where I was staying as I started work. And that journey could have taken me 3 days and I still wouldn't have cared. It was just like, I'm free. I don't have to stay here anymore. I'm gone. See ya, suckers. I'm out.
I get that. And now, how was this next transition for you? Automatically better?
Oh, I mean, looking back, it could have been just as bad, but just having it be a different place, much busier atmosphere, a huge ER compared to what I was used to. Like, you were just so busy that there wasn't any time to pick on anybody because everybody was just so busy doing their actual job. So not only was it just such a nice change and I was back down south and it was something new and I was all excited, but then the coworkers were fantastic and my boss was amazing. And it was such a wonderful environment, comparatively speaking, to my first job. So I was in complete awe that I was like, I can't believe that I've lucked out because I thought nursing was going to be like that for the rest of my career. And like, no kidding, people aren't sticking around. Why would they for that kind of behavior? But this job was just like immediate. Everybody's going out for like breakfast after a night shift. Everybody's having parties, and somebody's getting married and somebody's having a baby, and there's just parties all the time because there were so many of us. Like there's easily probably 100 to 150 nurses that worked this department. So it was just so big that even if you did kind of like not have a personality that jived with somebody else, the chance of you actually working with that person was like slim to none. So it was complete magic compared to the absolute gong show that was up north.
That's amazing that you got that transition. Now, I'm curious, at what point in your journey did you realize the power of your intuition?
So I didn't realize it until COVID. I thought,
Really?
I thought that I was just good at my job.
And now, question, let me
Yeah.
interrupt you. How long were you nursing before COVID?
So 2020, so I graduated in 08. So 12 years before COVID.
Okay, that's a good amount of time. I was
That's
just
a
curious.
good amount of time.
You're not talking like 2 years. Okay, continue.
No, sorry.
You're talking lengthy time.
So it wasn't until COVID, and I mean, we could go down that lovely little rabbit hole, but it just left me in a place where I was so like emotionally done, psychically done. Like I wasn't really eating. I definitely was not sleeping. So when COVID first happened, obviously everything shut down. And so my kids were 4 and 5.5 at the time. They were home all day. And it's not like these ages where you can kind of like drift off and, sleep in the couch and they're okay. No, you actually had to keep eyes on the kid because they got into things fast. And so I was up all day with the kids, and then I'd be up all night at work. And then I'd be up all day with the kids, and then I'd be up all night at work. And so I was in a 2 to 3 day cycle of getting absolutely no sleep. And then I get a couple of days off and try to get some sleep, and then repeat and do that for months before daycares finally started opening up again. And so I was just mentally shot. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but it left me in this place where I started thinking about like, oh, like if I was to pass due to COVID, how do you explain to a 4 and 5.5-year-old that mom chose to continue to go to work? And so it's just this like thought process of leaving them stories and trying to explain to them, because heaven forbid something actually happened, let's try and leave them some stories. So I ended up writing like all of my good stories, which were a couple stories. And then very quickly, all the negativity and the trauma that I had never dealt with properly came flooding out. And so I wrote down all these stories, and I kind of took a step back and going like, okay, what is happening with this? And I was listening to an online book fair by Llewellyn, who's a publisher in the States, metaphysical publisher in the States. And they had these authors talking about their books. And so one of the very few that I was able to catch was this woman talking about her book, Intuition at Work. And I remember thinking, intuition at work, I use my intuition all the time at work. And it was just such a light bulb moment where I'm like, intuition, yeah, that makes sense. And so I went back through all my stories and realized that the whole time, every single one of these stories that stuck out, there was a thread of intuition. And, did I trust my gut? Did I not? Did I say anything? Did I not? And if I did say something, was I listened to or wasn't I? And then what were the outcomes? And so I kind of took a step back and went back through my whole career and went like, okay, when was this actually starting to really kick in? And I figured out when I got to that second job, and you would be at triage and you're triaging 50 to 60 patients over the 12 hours. Like it's just nonstop, patient after patient after patient. And you have to, the idea behind triage is, let me get a set of your vitals. Let me hear the story. Let me get your past medical history and any medications you're on. And on a scale of 1 to 5, so 1 is like, oh my God, you need to be seen this instant by a physician because you're about to die, if not already dead. Or 5, which is this can wait, should have gone to a walk-in clinic or your family doc, like super non-urgent. And you've got 5 minutes. Every single patient on a scale of 1 to 5 who's sick. And, it's stressful because if somebody's mistriaged, it really, if they're actually sick and you've mislabeled them as kind of not sick, some serious consequences can happen and it can really end up biting you in the behind afterwards, especially if somebody was to like not do too well or die. So I'm like, oh, let me think about this. Oh, I was at triage and I thought I just needed a way to kind of keep myself engaged. And so I would start guessing as to what people were coming in for just by looking at them before talking to them. Just, oh, I wonder what they're here for. And, if somebody's got their hand over their chest and it looks like they're clutching at their chest, okay, that's probably chest pain. They look like they're breathing hard. Okay, that's shortness of breath, or they're holding their abdomen. Okay, maybe it's they've got some abdominal pain. And I ended up getting more and more right without even talking to people. So I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. Let's ramp this up a bit. Abdominal pain, that could mean a million different things. So let me see if I can kind of guesstimate. And then when I start talking to them, see if I can really narrow it down as to what's going on. And so the more I tried and practiced, the more I was right. And the times where I was like, okay, you are really sick. I'm not sure what's going on, but there's something more to this story. Those patients I would kind of follow as they would go through the ER. And at the end of it, I'd see them walking back out if they were leaving that day. And I'm like, hey, what ended up happening? And they'd tell me, and I'm like, oh, okay. So that it was what I was thinking. Okay. And I just thought I was playing a game. I thought I was goofing off and just trying to keep myself entertained while sitting at in a triage booth listening to story time for 12 solid hours. So I look back at that and I'm like, I just thought I was good at my job. I just thought that was what was happening. But no, there's more to this. And so it ended up leading me down this path of, okay, I've written these stories from COVID and now what do I do with it? Well, there is this intuition piece and a lot of nurses know about intuition and we trust it, but we don't talk about it. You're very lucky if at 3 a.m. we're goofing off, we're finally, slowing down enough to be able to kind of relax a bit and maybe tell some stories, go back and forth a bit. And that's where intuition stories typically end up, is this 3 a.m. conversation. And so to be able to bring it to light, I said, okay, well, let me be the one to talk about this then. Let me bring it up. And I kind of sat back. So I finished writing August of 2020. And I looked at it, I said, you know what? If I bring this forward without a lot of science behind it, because August 2020, September 2020, that's when the uptick of misinformation, disinformation really took off. Just was unreal. And so I'm like, I think I'd be risking my license if I put out this book with just saying, oh, there's intuition and it exists without any kind of scientific background. So I went on a deep dive, and not only is there so much information about intuition, but there's so much science backing specifically intuition in nursing. And so, we were taught in nursing school, despite what you may think, if the science is behind it, we need to be teaching it. So I thought, okay, well, there's the science. So let's teach it. And it's kind of led me on this crazy journey of, well, where is it? Writing my book and putting it out, and then doing a bunch of journals to then help with resilience and building up your emotional battery while nursing, because nursing takes a lot out of you and it takes a long time to get used to it. It's kind of like watching horror movies. You start everything's really shocking when you first start watching horror movies. And then once you kind of get into it, you're like, oh, I can kind of pick out what's happening, and you get desensitized to it. And so it's kind of like that in nursing, where the emotional toll of it, you get desensitized after a while. You understand that there is a lot to this and there is a lot of energy flying around, but I don't have to participate if I don't want to. But it takes time to get there. So this whole journey has just been me saying yes to things and trying to pick myself back up after COVID. And if nothing else, just trying to help the next generation of nurses come out, be smarter about themselves and their own social batteries, because they're already on it. This next generation is so far superior to what I'm used to in the crotchety old nursing world that it's so refreshing to see. But it's kind of scary because then you can't help but look in the mirror and go, why wasn't I asking those questions when I first got out? Like, why was I kind of so blind to all of this and then just went with it? Like, what was I doing? But it's been insane and so much fun. And then I've gotten to go on podcasts and talk to people who I would have never had an opportunity to talk to ever before. So it's been this joyous gift of, for as much trauma as that lovely little book took, it's given back 100 times already.
I love that. Now, I'm curious, and this is something I just always want to know from authors. Did you always think you were going to write a book?
I think I did. I remember writing in like grade 7 and 8 little stories, and it was almost like fan fiction kind of at the time before we even knew what fan fiction was. But like I remember writing a lot, and then you go to university and they beat the love of any love of writing you had, they beat it out of you. Everything's science and there's little to no flow or creativity involved. It's kind of like you're just regurgitating somebody else's ideas and twisting it a bit and putting it back out. So it took a lot out of you. But to be able to now come back and write, I haven't stopped writing since August of 2020. It's like, oh, I do have those stories and they do need to get out. And there's a multitude of different angles on it. So it's been so much fun finding that piece of me again because I didn't know it was missing.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And now did you know as you started writing these stories for your daughters right away that it was going to be a book?
No, I thought it was just going to be a couple of stories for the kids. And like, if nothing else, just have them be physically out of my body and written down. So that I didn't have to worry about them anymore. That I could just let them go and be free and let them do whatever they were going to do. But to see them in a book, and the ongoing joke now is if I ever need a new therapist, I just give them that book and go, so here's volume 1 of why I am the way I am. We're going to save like $5,000-$10,000. We're just going to bypass it. It's a fun read. It's a lot at times, but yeah, that's the bulk of it.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Now, so I'm curious, just personally, at what point of you writing down these stories for your daughters did you realize, I got to write this? I got to write this into a book?
I think it was more when I was listening to the author's kind of highlights, that it wasn't until that thought of like intuition at work. Oh, that whole intuition piece, like that was the theme, right? So once you figure out, especially nonfiction, once you figure out a theme, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that 100% fits. And of course, like everybody wants to know ER nurse stories. I mean, I get it all the time where it's like, what's your worst story? And I can't help but stop people to be like, how dark we going? Do you want to not sleep tonight? Because we could go there. That's probably not what you're going for. You're looking for the last time somebody shoved something fun up a place that they shouldn't have, is usually the stories that people are looking for, which I'm happy to share. I have a multitude. That's fine. But when people don't understand, when they say like, oh, what's your like worst story? They don't understand. Like I don't want to share it because I don't want to burden you with what I know. So we're just gonna move on past and we're just gonna go on to the funny butt stories. Like that's easy.
Oh my gosh, I get it. Now, I'm curious, is there anything you wish or you want the general public to know about the ER?
If you get to wait, and I say get to because not everybody has the option of waiting. Some people are so sick that they can't wait. If you have the ability to wait, count your lucky stars. I know that you're hurting, and like every ER nurse, we know that you're hurting. We know that you're scared. We know that you think that this is an emergency. We are trained to know whether it is or is not. So if you're coming to the triage booth and the first question out of your mouth is, what's the wait time? It's a very quick signal to me that maybe things aren't as serious as you think they are. I tell people, bring a book, bring a charger, bring an eye mask if you can, earplugs if you can, especially if you think that there's the chance of you being admitted. 100% bring those things, because there's nothing like trying to sleep in the ER with nonstop ringing and dinging, and I can't turn the lights off because I'm seeing patients all night long, and I actually have to see them. I have to see the color of their skin, and if they're sweaty or if they're like gray or green, like I need to see that. So unfortunately, as much as I would love to shut off the lights, sometimes I cannot shut off the lights, and other times in the facility, you physically cannot shut off the light. Like there's just no switch. They're not meant to turn off. So bring those things if you think that you could stay, and hopefully you don't have to use them. But really, keep in the back of your mind that I'm just a person. I am not a hero. I am not a saint. I am not perfect. I am there to help, but you screaming at me or spitting at me or trying to hit me or threaten me does not really make me want to help you. So just be exceedingly kind to your nurses, because as an ER nurse, I am 10 times more likely to be assaulted than police and corrections combined. Yeah. So violence in the ER is a huge issue. In the last several months in the state, there have been several like really horrific cases of nurses being beat to the point of losing both eyes, and having our hospital or having their hospital administration say, I'm not worried about the nurse. I need the patient dealt with, to the police. So just understand there's a lot at work behind the scenes. And even though the waiting room might look empty, does not mean that the department is not stuffed to the brim behind me.
Oh, wow. More than police and corrections.
10 times.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, I knew there was violence in the ER. Like, I'm not a nurse, but like I've even worked in residential programs like group homes. And I know.
No, very high. A high risk of violence in the group homes also.
Yeah. And even having seen and have tried to work with them on not violating nurses, but like, I did not realize it was more than police and corrections 10 times combined.
Yeah. It's insanity. So, and depending on your state, not everywhere is unionized. So the pay differences, so same levels, like registered nurse, same level, your pay difference can be like up to, I want to say 10 to 15 bucks an hour difference, depending on the state that you're working in. So, I mean, sometimes we're not being paid more than like McDonald's employees, or McDonald's employees are being paid more and are fully staffed. Like the ongoing joke about like, you go to the Starbucks on the way into work and it's like, they've got like 8 people behind the till and we can't even get 6 in the ER. So be kind. We are trying our best. If anybody snaps on you, I'm sorry, but it takes a lot to make us snap. It really does, because we get very good at putting on a happy face and saying we're sorry. I mean, it's a very Canadian thing to do, is we just say we're sorry continually. But, we're working our hardest with what we've got access to. And just because you see the nurses sitting around, that's fine, because sometimes I've done everything I can for the patient up to the point of the physician actually seeing them. So when there's only one physician overnight, there may be 6 nurses, but there's only one physician who's only seeing one patient at a time, because that's all they can really see is one patient at a time. And my hands are tied, especially for medications and imaging a lot of times, and specific laboratory tests. I would love to do all those things. I know those things are coming down the pipes. It's way above my scope to order a CT scan. It's way above my scope to order medications and that kind of thing. Do I know what's probably going to be ordered and how often and all this? Yeah, I do. I just don't have, it's way above my license to do any of that. So unfortunately, my hands are tied until the physician sees you.
That makes a lot of sense. But I love that you are stating it for people to hear from an actual ER nurse.
We're sorry. We know the waits suck. We know that you're in pain. Typically we can usually give Tylenol and Advil at triage. We can do blood work ahead of time, depending on what your presenting complaint is. Sometimes we can even do x-rays if it's like extremity, like your arms or your legs. If I'm really concerned about somebody, you're being brought in right away, and I'm grabbing the doc as I'm bringing them in to be like, you need to see this now. And again, that person then interrupts the whole rest of the flow of the shift, right? Because now that's the sickest person in the department. We need to deal with that. And sometimes it can take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 2 hours to really get somebody settled to a point of stability of, okay, well, now what? Are we transferring them out to another facility? Are we able to go down to CAT scan? Are they safe enough to be admitted, or do they have to go to another hospital because what they need is just a little bit too much for our facility? There's a lot of things at play. And even though we post wait times, know that a lot of times the wait times are completely inaccurate, and we're sorry again.
Now, I want to transition a tad. I'm curious, what part of nursing do you love?
I love getting to solve a problem. I love somebody coming in going, I don't know what's going on, but I'm having these symptoms and I've had this history and I'm taking these medications, and my mind starts working to go, okay, where are we going to go with this? What are we going to do? What am I anticipating the doc's going to need? And then trying to figure that out and getting somebody not just a point where they're comfortable, but to a point where they may be getting a diagnosis that they've been looking for months to years. Those ones really, really hit home. It's nice to solve the puzzle. But on the flip side, if you're really sick and I'm really interested, that means you are really sick. You kind of want me to be knowing of you, but you're not my whole world. Because if you're my whole world, you are so sick that my mind's firing on 16 different streams to try and figure out what's going to happen next, and let's get you stable. Pardon? Baby, headline. Children. Yeah, getting to solve a problem is always really nice. Helping somebody die comfortably and with dignity is a huge satisfaction of mine. Getting family to the point of acceptance takes a lot of work sometimes, like a lot of work, because it's very hard for people to say, well, we're okay to not do anything more for grandma. She's 93. Unfortunately, she's riddled with cancer. She's in pain. She's not herself. It's time we let her go. Sometimes that's my biggest hurdle, is to try and get families on the same page as what's happening. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it definitely does not. It just depends on the family members. But getting people to the point that death sometimes is not the enemy. Death can be just another transition where we've lived and we've celebrated and we've had all these great memories, and especially when people are like surrounded by family and like multiple generations, you're like, okay, this person's obviously got to be like so loved because they're just surrounded by family. Like, we can't even get these people away from the bedside because there's so many of them. Okay, let's transition and let's go and let me make her comfortable and let me make sure that she's got no pain, and play music if you want to, as long as it's not too loud and there's not some other emergency going on in the department. But play some music and talk and laugh and celebrate, because, sometimes that's just the most amazing thing, is just watching somebody pass and pass comfortably and letting that next stage happen. It's hard. It's our loved ones, where we all wear blinders where our loved ones are concerned. If you ever want to know if it's time, ask the nurses. Ask the nurses, if this was your family member, what would you do? You may get a very blunt answer, and be ready for that blunt answer. But the quickest way to kind of break through my emotional barrier is to make me, or put me in your spot. And let me tell you, I've seen a lot. We can continue to do everything under the sun for grandma, but even doing everything under the sun, people don't live forever. And nobody wants to be that person to say, now is the time, I'm going to pull the plug. I don't want to be responsible for having to say that it's the end of their life, but it's a kindness. Like oh my gosh, I had to put my dog down last year, and man, did the veterinarians do such a wonderful job of making it peaceful, serene, pain-free, and quick. Wow. They have got it down to a science, and we are so much kinder to animals than we are to our own loved ones, unfortunately. But that's just a huge topic that we could go, or I could go on and on and on about. But if you ever want like a truly, real reality check, just ask your nurse, if this was your loved one, what would you say? What would you do? What would you think? And just, it's a great barometer for what the next steps are. And, if the nurse is saying, oh no, like this is fine, they're not even admitted yet, like I don't even think they're going to be admitted, they're probably going to go home later, we're just going to do X, Y, and Z, and then grandma's going to be great, and then we're going to send her back to the home. Fantastic. Great. But sometimes it is, we don't typically give length of time. Everybody wants to know, well, how much time does she have left? And everybody's very, very different, especially if they decide that they want to hang on. Sometimes they will hang on until that last person comes to see them. But, we all have a pretty good barometer for like hours, days, minutes, that kind of thing. So if your nurse is telling you, do you have extended family out away from locally? And people go, yeah. I've got people from, BC or Nova Scotia or wherever, and, extended family there. I'm like, I would call them. That is your sign that things are not going well. I typically will still tell people, even if you call everybody down, everybody has a visit, things turn around. I'm wrong. I'm absolutely wrong sometimes. If things turn around, then everybody's had a really nice visit. And then you've at least had that time. But I would rather give people the option that this could be it than not, because it's way more traumatic for people if, I didn't know. How could nobody told me? Well, nobody was clear enough, obviously.
I like how you mentioned trying to make sure that they die with dignity, and I think a big thing is that death is just a transition. It's not the end all be all. Like, it's the end of seeing them physically, but like, it's just this next part of life, know? Like,
it's not to say that they're not still with you. Like, 100%. If you're carrying that memory with you close, they're still there. You can still talk to them. You're probably not going to get an answer back. You may not. But you can still talk to them. You can still write them letters. You can still call them and leave them voicemails. Like, just, and everybody grieves so differently that there's no rule book on that one. But it's one of these things where nobody has these conversations until all of a sudden it is the emergency and it is like life or death. And then we're asking families like, oh, what was grandma's wishes? Did she want the breathing tube? Did she want CPR? Did she want us to do everything to save her? And everyone kind of looks at each other, goes, well, we've never talked about it. And you're like, oh. And then the default answer is do everything, And we're like, I do not want to break all of grandma's ribs when I do CPR. I really don't. There's nothing worse than that, truly.
Yeah, that's tough. I like how you mentioned about nobody wants to live forever.
No.
Like
You think you do until you get to that age.
Yes. No,
Or you're
like,
living with chronic pain or like all these other things. Like sometimes death is an okay answer.
and you made that comment, and I don't want to live forever. When I was like in middle school, I watched this, I think it was Tuck Everlasting, where like these people live forever. And I had to do this whole writing project on if I do not want to live forever. I want to die at some point. Like
the teacher was bang on that one.
I remember it pretty vividly. And like we had to explain either why we wanted to live forever or why we didn't. And it
100%. But like way to introduce the concept of death to like
I was 12.
Fourth graders.
I was 12. And I still am randomly like, I'm only 28 now, but I don't want to live forever. I'll be ready to die at some point.
Listen, a really good stroke that takes you out in one go takes decades to work up to. So like, enjoy the bacon. It's okay. Obviously, don't overindulge, but life is short. Like you can enjoy everything in moderation, provided that you don't have allergies or celiac or something else. But live. Like it's okay to live. I don't think I'll make it past, if I make it past 80, I'll be looking at like medical assistance and dying for like 85 for sure.
Oh my God.
But ma'am, you don't have any chronic conditions. Life is the chronic condition. That is it. That's so dark, but so true.
I get it. I get it. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. No, I want to transition a tad, kind of off topic, but I'm curious. You've mentioned Gnosis intuition, and we've talked a little bit about trusting your gut, but do you have like suggestions for people, not even Gnosis, to listen to their intuition or trust their gut better?
Yeah. So everybody has got intuition. Absolutely everybody. Women, anybody over the age of, any woman over the age of 12 knows this feeling intimately. You're at a party. You're having a good time. You're doing your thing. You're maybe a couple drinks in. There's a guy in the corner, hasn't said a word to you, but you are just instantly, absolutely not. Shut it down. Total creep vibe. No. That's your intuition. That's all it is. So, to take that and then potentially put it into your working situation or just your everyday life situation, like it's already there. It's already primed and ready to rock and roll. It's just, are you listening to it? Are you recognizing that that's what's happening? When your gut it feels like a punch in the gut sometimes, where it's just like, oh, I don't like this situation. I don't like this person. I don't like what's happening around me. I feel very bad about what's coming in the future, as in like, I'm planning to go out with friends and we're going to go to this club. And I just don't have a great feeling about this club. Like, and me personally, like I get that anytime that I'm taken out of my routine context. So, going to university and going to clubs and stuff, anytime that I would have to leave campus, I was like, not about it. I was like, you know what? Everything's pretty far from campus and I don't have a ton of money for a cab. And I'm definitely not walking in heels for 30 minutes to get to a club and back. No, I'm good. So I would just shut down and avoid those situations. So again, was that my intuition or was that just me kind of chickening out and being wary of the differences and a different scenario? But, trust your gut. It can't steer you wrong. And if it does, so you're extra safe. Darn it. You avoided a horrible situation. Nuts. Just, crap. You just see. So just see what it feels like. So if you're just having that like hesitation, so, you're getting on a bus and you think that somebody's looking at you or you just get that feeling that somebody's looking at you. You're just like, no, I don't like this feeling. Just take a minute to be like, what am I actually feeling? Where am I feeling it? Is it in my gut? Is it my chest? It's heavy. Am I just heebie-jeebies where it's just like that somebody's walked over your grave, kind of like the whole body shudder thing? Are there just like ideas that pop into your head or questions about like, is somebody looking at me? Like all of a sudden out of nowhere, ideas will pop into your head. Pay attention to those because sometimes they're bang on. And if they're not, oh, well, you've made a mistake. Life is mistakes. No big deal. Nobody got hurt. But just play with it and see what happens. And then the only other half is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to do anything about it? Or are you just going to be aware, right? And again, we as females, we live to be aware of every scenario, every time that you're in a new room. I don't know about you guys. I make sure for exits, but that's just a nursing thing. I don't usually have my back to a door. I never have myself enclosed in a room. That's, again, patient safety. And that's just a nursing thing. But that's just something that I do, that I'm aware that I do because of previous scenarios. And I've learned. And so is my gut.
I like all of those examples.
We're all doing it already. We're just not paying attention to it. That's all. The key really is just to figure out that you're doing it. And then go, oh, okay. So now that I know that I'm doing it, or I've caught myself in a moment where this is happening, now what? Like, what is it telling me? What am I feeling? Do I want to do anything? Do I not? Is this just kind of a be aware moment? Or is this a you need to get out of the room now moment?
Is this a be aware moment, or do I need to get out of the room now moment?
Yeah.
I loved your example of we've all been a girl, even at 12 or literally older, like at the party, even without the drink, and you see the creepy looking guy in the corner, and you get the vibe. Like,
it happens at work. You're being introduced to a new colleague, and you're just immediately no. They've not said one word to you, and you're just immediately shutting it down. We also need to be aware of like implicit bias. You know, we all have grown up with implicit bias. Like, are you making this judgment call because of certain aspects or features, or is it just because they're a man or whatever else? Just be aware, right? That, again, learned behaviors, we're making those connections, but just be aware of implicit bias. But again, worst comes to worst, if you're making that call, what's the worst that can do? Oh, you're safe. Okay. Maybe you've made a crap judgment call, and it's taken you some time to then learn to that person's really not that bad. Like, I just caught them on a bad day. I was a little bit off. They were a little bit off. Their cat had just died or something. Like, that's why they felt that way to you. There may be other reasons, but again, you've got the time then to figure it out because you trusted your gut immediately.
You've got the time to figure it out. I really liked how you mentioned, worst case, you're just extra safe. You're
just like, I'm just going to keep an eye on you. I'm just not sure about you. It's going to take time to warm me up to you. And again, some personality types, the very strong personality types, are like this as well, where if two strong personality types come up together, usually they're going to rub each other the wrong way, just for the simple fact that they're too strong, usually alpha females. They rub each other the wrong way, and you kind of walk away. But the ongoing joke is, all those friendships that you're like, how did we get to being friends? I don't know. I kind of thought you were a bitch when we first met. Oh yeah, me too. And then all of a sudden you're like inseparable as friends. But you've had that time, right? So just, again, it takes time to figure it out. It takes time to be aware, but keep track. Like, journaling is probably the best way to start to keep track, just so that you can see if there's patterns, right? So, my intuition is always going off when I'm on the subway. Rightfully so. My intuition is always going off at work when I'm in a certain room, or I'm in a certain situation, or I'm dealing with a certain topic. That's when my intuition is going off. So, okay, let's focus on that, right? So your intuition's going off about this topic. Well, maybe you're a realtor. You've gotten this ridiculous deal. Things are going to go so smoothly. And you're just like, I don't know. I think that there's something more about this deal. Like, there's something fishy about the deal. Sure enough, all of a sudden, somebody's, passed in the house and they're supposed to tell the realtors when that happens, but they didn't. They just wanted to try and get rid of the house fast, and they didn't inform the realtor. Well, there you go. That's why it felt fishy, because you were missing a part of the information.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you had such a great point. Like, there's not really a downside to following a gut
No.
at all.
So you're extra safe. Maybe you've made a snap judgment. Maybe it comes around that you were wrong later. Accept it. That's okay. But then you can go back into your little journal and be like, okay, so that time I made a snap judgment about that person. What was it maybe about? And like, sit with it. What was it about that person that potentially made me have a snap judgment? Well, he kind of looked like a friend I used to have who ended up like stabbing me in the back. And without you subconsciously putting the two of them together, that's why you made that snap judgment. Right? So be prepared to be wrong, and you can always say sorry. Again, very Canadian. You can always say sorry. It takes nothing. And you want the best way to diffuse a situation when somebody's pissed, you just say sorry. Even if you're not actually sorry, in the hospital system, I'm so sorry for the wait. And people kind of go, what? I'm like, well, I understand. I empathize that the wait time is exceedingly frustrating. And you feel like you're not moving or you're not going anywhere. I get it. So I'm sorry. And the number of times that takes somebody from like a 10 down to a 2 in behavior, you're like, oh, it cuts people out at the knees. It is fantastic. It is by far the greatest tool that is underutilized everywhere.
I love your example of journaling about it, to like reflect on it, to see, like even physically see, like from writing it, like comparing, is there certain places, is there certain types of people, like whatever it may be, even if the biases, in like taking stock, because we won't really necessarily know.
Well, and there is nothing more impressive than when somebody comes to terms with one of their own biases. And whether it's right or not in their own minds, or something that they were inherently raised with and they didn't realize, or, family values that may have been passed down that's no longer working for that person. They've come to terms with that. Like, it takes time. Like, we're not just ourselves. We're a product of our parents and the scenarios that we've lived in. So just be gentle with yourself and just watch you grow, because we're meant to grow. We're not meant to stay stagnant.
That is so true. We are not meant to stay stagnant. I completely agree. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Jen. I really enjoyed this. Now
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, of course. Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
I don't think so. I'll have to look him up. Jay Shetty?
Yes.
So
he's Shetty.
Oh, Shetty.
So he's got a podcast called On Purpose. He's an author, former monk. He ends his podcast with 2 segments. It's no big deal that you haven't heard of him, but he ends his podcast with 2 segments, and I've stolen those 2 segments. I'll give him credit.
It's the polite, nice way of saying, I very much admire what you're doing. Thereby, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. I'm stealing it, but you're getting credit.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Always.
Exactly. The first segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions that need to be answered in 1 word each. What is 1 word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Bubbly.
What is 1 word someone that knows you extremely well would use to describe you as?
Smartass.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Authentic.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Bitch.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Authenticity.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in up to a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
Trust your gut.
Why is that the
Selfish.
best?
Because it's so innately simple and we're already doing it. It's just we're not aware that we're doing it. So once you figure it out, man, it is powerful. It lets you read a room. It lets you take stock as to, feeling people out and feeling scenarios out and then giving you all the reason to say no. It's just a way to empower you to say no to scenarios that don't feel safe.
What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
Just push through your feelings in relations to marriage advice that I got from a therapist. Hubby and I were struggling a bit. We were going to a counselor. I was saying that I didn't feel supported or safe, and like safe in like psychologically safe kind of thing. And he was complaining about intimacy. And she's like, oh, you just need to push through. Fired. Immediately fired. No woman should be ever giving that advice to any other woman. Ever. Yeah. Fired.
And it was a woman. And it was a woman that
Yes.
said that to you.
If it was a man, I would have been like, ugh, whatever. I just would have been for being a man. But
Not
like,
that he should have, but like,
no, not that he should have, but like, would I expect any less? No. For it to come from a woman, immediately fired. Immediately. I raged for days about that.
I don't blame you. I'm over here speechless at that.
So was I. I was like, okay. And I hung up the phone. I was like, never again.
I'm like shocked at that.
Don't push through your feelings. Don't ever push through your feelings. Your feelings are there for a reason. There's reason why you're feeling that. Trust your gut.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Getting drunk with friends. I mean, it's still a good time, but it's not the end all be all that it used to be. Like my Thursday nights, like it was the whole day was working up towards going out to the university bar. Like I'd start at like 3:00 and be like, I'm going to have a shower. I'm going to do my hair. And then we're going to pick out an outfit and like, we're going to pre-drink and then the friends are going to come over and then we're going to go to the park. Like it was a whole thing. And as much fun as it was, I don't have that kind of time anymore. Who's got that kind of time at 40? Nobody.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
She gave her all to others until she said no and started to give it to herself.
If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
No. I mean, political climates aside, no man should have any say as to a female's body. Period. It used to be a law. Needs to be again. No uterus, no choice. No say.
I relate to that.
I can't. Having a daughter and being a female of reproductive age, and again, I'm in Canada, so I have access to that kind of care if I so choose, and you better believe I would choose. I'm 40. I had complications with both pregnancies. I love my children dearly, but no, not again. Not again. No, some of the things that are happening are just, I'm scared for you guys.
I get it. I know.
Yeah. Canada will take you. Come on up. Come on up. You're more than welcome. Come on up. Free healthcare. Free healthcare. You'll pay a hell of a ton in taxes. You'll have to learn to say sorry a lot. You'll have to love poutine. You may or may not love maple. I hate maple, but a lot of people love it. But you're more than welcome. More than welcome.
I've actually never been to Canada.
I mean,
never.
But where are you based out of?
Massachusetts.
And here I've been to Massachusetts like 4 times now. Come on. I love Mass. I love Mass so hard. If I had to choose a place to live in the States, Mass would be absolute number one choice. It was going to be Salem, and then I finally went to Boston. I'm like, ooh, Boston's nice. Boston's nice. I enjoy it. But like Salem for sure. Like hands down, a million times over Salem.
Oh, right.
It feels like home. It feels like home. They're so accepting, and there's little dog bowls for like animals outside of like every single store, and they've all got little treats for the cats and dogs. There's nothing but pride flags as far as the eye can see. And so to me, there's no reason to not be anybody but you there. And I just makes my heart sing.
That's so true. That's
Yeah.
so true. Well, thank you so much, Jen. I loved this.
I'm so glad. I had so much fun.
Me too.
I may
And
have rambled.
Oh my God, you did not. And where's the best place for listeners to connect with you?
Oh
They
my
wanna
gosh.
get in-
So Instagram and TikTok at ernurse.jen, Jenn. I'm most active on LinkedIn, Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. You can find me on Amazon, Jennifer A. Johnson, RN. You can find my store, which has got my book and my journals. And yeah, there's always something in the works. I can't stop. It's a habit at this point.
I love that. I will link all of that in the show notes. And I do just like to give it back to the guests. Any final words of wisdom, anything else you want to share with the listeners?
I'm proud of you. Just if nobody's said it lately, so proud of you. Have come up against so much and overcome so much we all have with the pandemic and all the extra ridiculousness. So proud. Just keep pushing. You matter. Go vote.
Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.